So the horror physical media label Severin Films is going pretty hard on Italian Gothic movies right now. Early 2023, they released DANZA MACABRA Volume 1, Italian Gothic Collection. I reviewed this on the channel. But a little bit later, actually in December, just over the last month, they released DANZA MACABRA Volume 2, a second Italian Gothic collection.
There is another.
And folks, I watched through this. Oh boy, have I got things to say. Let's dig into it. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Welcome again to the Cobwebs channel. My name is Daniel. And yes, Severin is going pretty hard on this DANZA MACABRA box set line because they released two of them just in the same year. And they said on their podcast recently that they're already working on Volume 4. So they're taking this very seriously. But the question is, am I all in on it? And are you? So I'm going to show you all the goodies in here, but I'm also going to review the movies. I watched through this, and I'm just going to tell you right now, this video is not going to be a big love fest.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Well, let's go ahead and dig into it. So, you go ahead. Oh, wow, I really just did that too quickly. YouTube, y'all on YouTube, you like to see this. Okay, so you take the top off, and you have got 4 individual cases in here for what you get. A 4K release of Castle of Blood.
My heart isn't beating. I'm dead, Alan.
They have changed their face.
Pieno XX secolo. Lei crede ancora ai vampiri?
The Devil's Lover.
Alla tua salute, Signore degli abissi e delle tenebre.
And JEKYLL.
In questa stanza adesso sta per accadere un fatto cui nessun essere umano ha ancora assistito.
I'm going to tell you what these movies are about, what they're like, what I think about them, and I'll tell you about the special features. So let's kick off with what I think is the premiere title, because I think it's the most famous movie in the set, and it's the one 4K, and that is Castle of Blood. So Volume 1 didn't have any 4K, so that's new for this line, which is pretty cool. And Castle of Blood, I didn't own this before, but I actually almost did, because this isn't the first time that Severin has technically released Castle of Blood. It was actually included as a bonus film on their release of another Barbara Steele Italian Gothic film, Nightmare Castle. No, I don't have that, but through no fault of my own, I actually tried to buy it. One of the many times that Severin's website crashed during their Black Friday sales, I was trying to order it, and then they said, hey, just email us, tell us what you want. So I emailed them, and they didn't send me Nightmare Castle, even though I did put it in my email.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
They didn't charge me for it, but they didn't send it to me. But now I have Castle of Blood. And when you open this up, you see it is a 3-disc collection. It has got Castle of Blood, as well as the longer cut DANZA MACABRA on 4K. You also get DANZA MACABRA itself on Blu-ray with special features, and the American cut Castle of Blood on Blu-ray with special features. So, what is this movie about? Well, it's a typical Gothic period piece. It opens up with a guy entering a pub, and he runs into a man who's telling a scary story to a group of patrons in there, and that man is Edgar Allan Poe. Yes, Edgar Allan Poe is a character in this movie. In fact, in the opening credits of this film, they credit this as an adaptation of DANZA MACABRA by Edgar Allan Poe.
It's false. No way. No, not this time. It's totally made up.
There is no such story. This is not based on Poe. Apparently, that was the way that Sergio Corbucci, who was actually the man that started production on this movie, he didn't end up directing it, but that was the way that he got the producers on board, because apparently, according to a commentary that I listened to on this, Italian producers are much more likely to greenlight something if an American or English writer or somebody not Italian was behind it. Kind of a weird little thing, but that's how he was able to get it past the producers. The saying was a Poe adaptation, but it's not. But in addition to Edgar Allan Poe, he runs into another guy who says that he owns a haunted castle. And he tells the guy that if he can stay the night in that house and survive, as no one ever has before, he will get $100. And from that point, we basically watch him walk around, explore this very spooky castle with amazing sets and atmosphere, and run into people who might be ghosts. And then he watches a series of flashbacks on how these people died. The main ghost is played by Barbara Steele, who he falls very deeply in love with almost right away. So there's some conflict right there. How is this movie? Well, I thought it was okay. I was not as impressed with this movie as I know a lot of other people are. A lot of people, when they praise this movie, they talk about how amazing the atmosphere is. And absolutely, the atmosphere is great. Funny enough, this movie's part of a long tradition of Italian films where they would make a movie and then they would very quickly make another movie using the same sets and costumes before they had to tear it all down, just to get a little more bang for their buck. And that's what this movie is. It does feel like that. It feels like a movie that was not made because they had a story to tell, but rather because they just wanted to make a horror movie, and here you go, they made one. I have seen a lot of movies with fantastic gothic atmosphere, and a lot of them have way better stories and way better characters. So much of this movie has no dialogue, and it's just watching someone wander around looking at a spooky castle. And folks, that can be fun briefly, but for an over 90-minute movie, it was a little bit rough. Now, I watched the Italian version, which is actually a little more than the Italian version. The DANZA MACABRA on this set is the longest, most complete version that has ever been available of this, because it's not only the Italian cut, but it also includes scenes that were included for the French cut, which has a little bit of nudity. There was only nudity in the French version. Now with the longest version on this Blu-ray, you do get that, so there you go.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually starting to convince myself that I like this movie more than I do, and I was also getting kind of convinced by the fantastic commentary that is on here with Rob Barnett from the Paul Naschy podcast, the Naschy Cast. Rod Barnett. I feel like I said something else first. As well as Dr. Adrian Smith, who's an author. And that was a fantastic commentary. They had really good chemistry together, had so much fascinating background information. And actually watching the movie with their commentary was definitely the better way to watch it, because I got the great visuals and the atmosphere, but it was also more interesting than the movie actually is. And they really praised this movie. One of them said it's his favorite Gothic film. And judging by my letterbox, the people I follow on there, a lot of people really love it. So I didn't love it. There are a lot of other Gothic movies that I love much, much more. But you got to shout out Barbara Steele. She is fantastic in this movie. And this movie does have a video essay by, I believe it's by Rachel Nisbet, right? Yeah, it is. All about Barbara Steele's Gothic career. And it goes through each of her Gothic films, talks about them, her in them, and her life while making those movies. And it's a pretty great video essay. It's a half hour long, and it's very much well worth the watch. So I think this one, it's got the best special features. Good transfer, not an amazing transfer on the 4K. I've seen a lot of 4Ks that look much better, especially a lot of black and white 4Ks. This is not one of the standout black and white 4Ks I've ever seen. Next up, here's actually the first movie that I watched on this set. And this is They Have Changed Their Face. I actually heard some good things about this movie. It's about a guy who's very much middle management in a big company who gets told by his boss, hey, the owner of the company wants to see you. He wants to talk to you. And this seems like a really great opportunity for him. So he goes off into the country, over to the owner's country house, and spends like a week there with him. And he discovers the owner might not be what he seems, or maybe he is what he seems. Let's talk about it. So this movie takes place in modern day. The only Gothic atmosphere you're going to get in this movie is when he's in the town of this country town that he visits. That's very spooky, lots of fog, pretty great atmosphere there. But once he goes to the owner's house, it's not like he has some Gothic castle or something. It kind of just looks like a house. So mostly you're not getting very good Gothic atmosphere in this. I actually do question the choice of them including this in a Gothic set at all, but more on that when we talk about the special features. What this movie is it is an allegory for capitalism. That is entirely what it is. It is nothing but that. It's a movie about how much corporations suck and everything. And what this movie turns out to be, it's not really a spoiler because the owner's name is Nosferatu. Supposedly he's a vampire, but not a vampire like we know. What this movie posits is that capitalists are vampires. And I don't mean that like your boss at work who's kind of sucking the life out of you, he goes out at night and bites people's necks. No. That's not the kind of vampires they are. They're vampires in that they suck the life out of you by making you like do work and work on the weekends, I guess, and not give you a raise when you feel like you deserve it.
I'm gonna need you to go ahead and come in tomorrow. That would be great.
Okay.
Back, spawn of Satan.
It's really, really lame. I'm sorry. It's really dumb. Like, to posit this movie as a vampire movie when it's just like your boss at work is a vampire because he's kind of a jerk sometimes is so stupid. It's such a dumb idea for a horror movie. And this movie as a whole is not boring. And it's pretty interesting as you're going throughout. And I really like the performance of the woman who plays his secretary. I can't remember her name, but she was also in Deep Red, actually playing a man in that. But she gives a really good creepy performance. I wish she was actually playing a vampire. There's a scene where the Nosferatu is having a board meeting with the other leaders of the company. And it's so stupidly over the top. Just absolutely ridiculous on them being like, oh, I don't know. It's like one step short of like, hey, we should put poison in baby food. That's a great way to make money. And this is actually a movie that I liked less the more I thought about it. And I also liked less when I started listening to a commentary on here from Kat Ellinger, who's an author and she writes about horror movies a lot. And she seems to be like a producer of this whole set because you can see her credits all over the special features for this box set. And just, I don't know, her lavish praise on this movie just started to make me feel like I was digging my heels into the ground. Like, no, like she just said so many things I strongly disagreed with. She defended this movie being on the set by saying Gothic is not an aesthetic. It's a storytelling structure. It's themes. And I don't agree with that. I do think Gothic is not entirely an aesthetic, but it is, the aesthetic is part of it. I mean, Gothic is a subcategory of architecture, right? And it's not for the storytelling of the architecture, it's for the aesthetic. And she said that 98% of horror movies are Gothic. I also really don't agree with that. Nothing against her, and she has much better credits than I have. But I'm a huge Gothic fan. I just disagreed with a lot of what she said on that commentary. I didn't listen to all of it because I wasn't enjoying it, to be honest. Again, nothing against her. I just don't really like this movie, and I think I just didn't really enjoy hearing somebody praise it so much. But one cool special feature on here is it actually has 3 short films by the director, Corrado Farina. I haven't actually watched those yet, but I'm not a big shorts film watcher, but that's a pretty cool thing to include. And one of them is called The Son of Dracula, so that's pretty cool. Next up is a movie that I was definitely not expecting to be my favorite movie in the set, but it's my favorite movie in the set, and that is The Devil's Lover, which is from the early 70s, 1972, and it's starring Rosalda Neri, who is actually the star of the title character of Lady Frankenstein, which is a movie I really liked, and that was included in Danza Macabre Volume 1. So really, really cool to see her. And the movie opens up with her and a couple of girlfriends. They're on a road trip, and they stop by a spooky-looking castle out in the country. They've heard rumors that the devil owns this castle, and our main character, Helga, played by Rosalba Neri, she decides she really wants to disprove this. The caretaker of the castle is pretty immediately like, yeah, you can stay here, and yeah, I'll feed you, it's all good, come on in.
I don't trust him.
They end up going to bed at night, and Helga falls asleep and has a dream. And the rest of the movie is her dream. I don't take it personally as this movie is her dream. I do believe it is a flashback to an ancestor. She actually sees a painting on the wall that looks just like her. The movie just has a weird framing device. I think because the movie's so short, it's an hour and 18 minutes long, and I think they were just looking for some way to lengthen it. But most of the movie is a period piece taking place in old times, out in the country, which I really liked. It's actually, I would almost say it's more of a folk horror film than a Gothic film. It feels like a Gothic film at the beginning when they go to this castle, but once it goes back in time, feels much more like folk horror. And the movie follows Helga as she's preparing to marry a man, but also she meets the devil. And the devil is very much in this used as a metaphor for the liberation of sexuality. But it's not just the devil in this. It's got vampires briefly, which is weird. You don't understand why it's there totally. You've also got witches. This movie's got a lot going on, which is pretty cool. And it's definitely the most entertaining film in the set for me. This is the least bored I was by far watching anything. I had a pretty good time with it. I did really like the atmosphere of it. And I liked Helga as a main character. I thought probably the most compelling main character in this entire set, honestly. The movie is very messily made though. Like I said, it's got a lot of horror stuff that does not all come together. There's no reason for vampires to be in this movie at all, other than the fact that vampires are awesome, and I'm always happy to see them. And when it gets to the end of the movie, you can feel very much they're just doing anything they can to just wrap it up as quick as possible. Like, there's no real statement being made by the end of this movie. There's no real conclusion. You feel like it just kind of whimpers out, and it becomes very clear that the framing device of modern day around this is very much not necessary. But I liked the movie. I thought it was enjoyable. It was sleazy. It was fun. It had some violence, but you can tell they couldn't really afford much gore effects. So most all of that's pretty much off screen. But The Devil's Lover's a good time. Now, as far as special features, it's got a video essay by, I want to get her name right, Alexandra Heller-Nicholas, author of the Giallo Canvas. It's a video essay all about Rosalba Neri and the feminism of her work. This video essay is by far the sleaziest thing on this whole set. It has like so much nudity in it. That's so much of the clips that they put in for this thing. So just letting you know, it's by far the most X-rated thing on the set is this special feature. Now, the commentary is by Annie Rose Malamet, who is a host of Girls, Guts, and Giallo, which is a podcast that I personally never listened to. I only listened to a little bit of this commentary. It did not grab me. It felt very ill-prepared, that I could tell there wasn't going to be a lot of insight in it. There was a lot of comments like, oh, this is pretty, or oh, their outfits are pretty, and a lot of dead air. It was not very good. From the little bit I listened to, maybe it got better, but I was just kind of out at that point. Okay, quick interjection while I'm editing this video. Something that I forgot to say is a pretty major special feature on The Devil's Lover is it actually comes with the soundtrack on CD, which is not terribly uncommon for Severin. They're like, I think the only boutique label that regularly does that. There you got the track list as well. Now, to be honest with you, I have no idea why this was the movie where they decided to do this, because I did not find the score particularly great, and I don't really have intentions to pop this CD in anytime soon. I actually think they have changed their face. It's got a way cooler score and one I'd be more likely to listen to. This one, but if you're more into the music than I was, you can listen to it on compact disc, so that's fun. Okay, back to the video. Okay. Next up, JEKYLL. Okay, I got things to say. JEKYLL is not a movie. It's a television miniseries that was on TV in Italy in the 1960s, an adaptation of the Jekyll and Hyde story. And I was nervous about this because I'm not a big TV guy, and altogether it's 4 hours long, so I knew if this isn't good, this could be rough. It's 4 hours. 4-hour-long episodes. And guys, I'll tell you right now, even though I really wanted to give you the most complete review that I could, I only watched one episode because I could not take it anymore, and life is too short. To say that this is the worst looking Blu-ray I have ever seen in my entire life does not do justice to truly explain this to you. This looks abysmal. It's one of the worst looking things I've ever got on home video of any format. To me, it looked very clearly like a VHS rip, and not a VHS that was in good shape. It looks atrocious. Truly, truly atrocious. And okay, a buddy of mine listened to the podcast on the Severin's podcast where they talked about this set. I didn't listen to it myself, but he was telling me about it when we were talking about this. And he said based on the podcast, he completely assumed that this was a bonus feature. He did not even realize they were talking about this as 1/4 of the set. And to put these horrendous looking transfers on a Blu-ray as 1/4 of a $95 box set feels like fraud. It feels like a scam. Look. Okay, another thing my buddy told me about this podcast, I'm getting worked up, is they said we really appreciate our fans because they realize not everything can get restored beautiful, and it matters to preserve things even if it can't look great. And honestly, I believe them. I believe them that it can't look any better than this. It was on television in the 60s in Italy. I'm sure the elements are not great. I understand. This should have been on a DVD. A cheap DVD, like a $10 DVD at most. Or even better, it should have been a bonus feature. This should have been a bonus, like maybe not necessarily in this set, but they should have just released some adaptation of Jekyll and Hyde, there are tons of them, and put this as a bonus feature, and then it's preserved for those that want to watch it. It's not been lost to time. I respect that completely, but I do think it's the financial aspect. It's the fact that, like I said, it really does feel like a scam. Putting that on a Blu-ray as 1/4 of a $95 box set is inexcusable. I think it's terrible. Now, the first episode that I watched, it's not just visually, it was excruciatingly boring. It made me so tired that I literally questioned if I was sick. I couldn't believe how exhausted watching it made me. And it didn't even go away for like an hour after I was done. For an hour after I watched this first episode, I felt exhausted beyond belief. It finally faded away and I was okay. But that's just to try to convey to you how unbelievably slow and boring it is. Now, I will give it credit. It does seem to be pretty faithful to the Robert Louis Stevenson book, which I've read several times. Not that it's period piece. It actually takes place in modern day, so you lose that whole beautiful aesthetic of Jekyll and Hyde, the top hat and the cane. I love that aesthetic. All gone. But what it is it focuses on Mr. Utterson, Dr. Jekyll's lawyer, and his investigation into what's going on with Jekyll. And I respect that. But it's crystal clear that they are doing anything they possibly can to stretch this out as much as possible to make it 4 episodes on TV. I mean, there's a scene where like Mr. Utterson gets home and gets out of his car and walks in and does general things around the house that you would do when you get home from somewhere. And it's all played out in real time and nothing happens. There's a scene where you just watch Dr. Jekyll give a lecture on DNA, and it's not particularly thematically relevant to anything. He's just giving a lecture to a college class on DNA, and it feels like an eternity. It's not good. I respect they want to preserve it. I get it. I support preservation of art, but they went about it, I feel, in a dishonest way. This should not be on a Blu-ray. It should be on a DVD unless it's a bonus feature. So that's my rant of a review. I'm sorry, guys. I don't like to make videos like this, but I had to be honest with you. I don't think this set was very good. I don't think they did a good job, and I'm disappointed. When I first watched through Volume 1, which wasn't all great, but I was overall happy with, I was kind of all in on collecting these sets as they come out. Now, when Volume 3 comes out, I will be doing research on the movies. I don't always do that when I buy stuff. Sometimes I'm like, that stuff looks cool. I want to check it out. I want to talk about it on the channel. Let's just get it. No, I will do research on those movies. I will make sure it's something that I actually want to invest my money and my time in. That's it for this one. If you enjoyed this, check out my review of Volume 1. I've got it linked right over here, as well as a playlist of all my Blu-ray reviews. Got a lot of horror box sets on there if you want to keep this train going. Thank you so much for watching. Give a like if you enjoyed this, and subscribe for more videos like this. With all that said, don't forget to enjoy yourself today, have some fun, and I'll see you next time.